Nas and Hit-Boy have just released their second project this year called Magic, and it's kind of a different feel than King's 2 because it's much shorter. It's only 9 tracks this time, and it only has a runtime of 28 minutes. So what's interesting about this is that when we were talking about the best duos this year, one duo that really came to mind was Nas and Hit-Boy, because it seems like Nas is going back on this vintage revenge tour, coming back and absolutely slaughtering the game once again at the ripe age of 48 years old, guys. So today we're going to be talking about Nas and Hit-Boy's new project Magic, our official review, and we actually just did our live reaction on our Patreon. So basically, everyone that subscribed to the Patreon comes into one live stream, the reaction tier to be exact with you, and we all bumped the album. So we ended up doing it. We really liked it. Our subscribers ended up fucking with it. So it's going to be a very interesting review. So subscribe if you have not already. And if you want more details to the Patreon plan, the link is in the description. So Lou, take us through how we do reviews here at NFR Podcast.
Yeah, so we do it a bit differently. We have different categories that we break down. So we're starting off with artist performance, then we'll be going into the content of the album, after that the features, then the production, the replay value, and then finally an overall rating. And instead of actually giving a numerical score to these categories, we go based on emotion. So we start off with bad, then we go into mid, good, great, amazing, and finally perfect. So going into this review, I mean, I didn't have the highest of expectations because I knew that the project kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere. It was kind of a surprise release, and I thought that it would be more of a relaxed approach as a project, and that's kind of what I got from it. I do think that King's Disease 2 was one of the best albums of the entire year. I don't know if that really holds a candle, to that project, but Magic was still an enjoyable listen. So let's actually get into it with the artist performance. What did Nas do here to impress you?
Well, first of all, I want to say this. He's 48 years old, and yet he still sounds so hungry to be able to prove that, he's in that top percentile of rappers and lyricists. Like, I was listening to this whole album, and I'm like, man, this guy does not know how to stop, especially like the way he was able to introduce the album, like that first verse on Speechless. That was absolutely ridiculous. It already gave you an indication of where he was going to come from. And what's also really cool about this track list is I feel as if Nas has this more pessimistic and violent flow, something that you didn't necessarily get on King's Disease 2 because that was more of a meditative approach, whereas of this, it was more aggressive in your face. So going through the track list, where do you think Nas really, let's say strived as far as performance-wise?
Yeah, it's definitely the top-notch lyricism. I mean, no one is really on his level, to be honest. He's definitely one of the best lyricists that we still have, and it's crazy to think that he's almost 50 years old, bro. Like, it's absolutely incredible to see the internal rhymes that he's bringing into this, the double entendres. It's all, amazing, and I also think that in terms of the pessimistic approach, I would say that I agree with you. He kind of has a darker view on the situations that he's involved with and also just what he's witnessing from other artists. And also
you hear that in the tone of
within his community and all that sort of stuff. So it was cool to get that. But I still feel like he had more of that meditative approach that kind of dominated the entire track list. It felt like oftentimes his delivery was kind of laid back. The flows weren't too fast paced for the most part. And I would say that he does introduce and experiment more modern flows on songs like Speechless and also Meet Joe Black. Apart from that, I would say a noticeable flaw with the project in terms of Nas's performance would have to be the pacing issues. I feel like sometimes the songs are a bit drawn out. I feel like the hooks maybe get a bit too long at certain points and they feel unnecessary in terms of the length. So that's something I noticed, but Nas really strived here at just, having these smooth rhyme schemes and really having, these great transitions from one line to the next. So overall, for him to be doing this at this level at the age of almost 50 years old is super impressive. So I think that overall we'll give it a great rating.
Absolutely. It deserves the great rating. And I understand what you're saying about the meditative approach. And there was 2 songs in particular where I felt kind of that more relaxed and softened up delivery. And I think it was on Hollywood Gangsta and Woo for the Children. I think those were really the 2 tracks that kind of had that slower approach, because when you're going to go from Speechless to 4016 Building, it's very fast paced and Nas doesn't stop. So it depends. I think that's where maybe you could find that pacing issue and maybe something within his delivery. But let's actually now move on to the content, because there's one thing Nas is known for, and it's knowledge. It's going into an album and learning all kinds of different stuff. And it almost feels as if you're in a classroom while listening to a project. And I don't think you're getting anything short of this. Plus, I had to highlight some of the bars on this album. This is ridiculous. All right, so listen to this. On Speechless, verse 1, only thing undefeated is time. The second is the internet. Number 3 is this rhyme. Like, his ability to be able to just lead you into the next and the next and the connects is super fucking cool, and I love the way he's super consistent with all of these bars. Ugly, verse 2. I see the envy getting closer through my optics. Knew I had the vision before I seen an optometrist. I seen a whole lot of shit, never altered my confidence or my consciousness. So you're also getting those meditative bars that, you know, you want to hear from Nas. So take me through that. How did you like the content of the album, and where does it take you, let's say, from a listening standpoint?
I think, like, in terms of subject matter, we didn't necessarily get anything new from Nas. He's kind of, you know, rapping about subjects that he's spoken about in the past, but that doesn't mean that the messages and the words he's rhyming aren't powerful and they're not poignant, because they are all throughout. Apart from that, I mean, he just continues to be the best street prophet that we have in hip-hop, kind of advising the newer generations to stay away from a life of crime and really realize their full potential. So I love seeing Nas getting, you know, philosophical in that way and really giving guidance to people that are coming up. Apart from that, I mean, I just love the way that Nas sets up the environment on a song like Ugly. He's just able to really, you know, paint this vivid picture, not only through the bleak production where you have this piano that comes through, which is very somber, but you also have Nas kind of taking you through him waking up, looking through his window, seeing how the clouds are gray. So he really, you know, sets up that environment super well. And one thing I notice is how genius he is at taking one concept, like, for example, vision, and turning a whole rhyme scheme with different, you know, subjects, all revolved around that one term, which is vision. I'll give you an example of that. He raps on the song Ugly. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I see the envy getting closer through my optics. Knew I had vision before I see an optometrist. I seen a whole lot of shit. So with every rhyme there, he stays locked into that idea of vision. And I find that genius, because not many artists kind of stick to one major idea and find refreshing ways to talk about it in one song.
No, I like that too. And I was also, because I went through that same bar as you on the verse too, and I like, what I like about it is that he's always able to lead you into something new. That was something that I liked about the verses as well, is that it was super well structured. Everything was super knit, and it was super well tightened together. So I think when you're looking at this album from a content standpoint, it was absolutely great. You know, you're not going to necessarily get anything too innovative from Nas, but do you even want that at this point? You know, he's 48 years old. It's just a blessing, you know, getting him on projects and being able to spit all this knowledge. So there's definitely value there. But let's actually move on to a pretty big category for this album. Even though there's two considered features on this album, it's the features. And, you know, looking at what A$AP Rocky and Primo did for this album, and especially looking at, let's say, what was happening on Wave Gods, dude, that was fantastic. This was such a great standout for me on the album. So let me ask you this, all right? If we would have done our top 10 features of the year list, all right, and we did it, let's say, after this video, would you include A$AP Rocky in that conversation right now?
Honestly, it's too quick to say off of just 2 listens, but I will say that it's one of Rocky's best features in years, and he was fucking spitting on this song, bro. I know that a lot of people might give me, you know, a bit of hate for this comment, but he got Nas.
He did get him.
He got Nas on Wave Gods, bro. Energy-wise, lyrically, he was on his toes, and he comes in with lines like, trying to invest all my G's before we rest in peace. Like, the way that he makes these smooth rhymes all connect, and he just raps with so much purpose. I love the flow switches, and like I said, I haven't heard Rocky like this in years, and it just gets me so excited for what he's going to bring to All Smiles. And I also love kind of the vocal layering that he had, where he kind of had some reverb and some background vocals as he was delivering certain lines. I found that was super well executed, and I never would have expected for Rocky to get Nas on his own song, and it's beautiful to see.
Well, Primo actually had a nice part as well, because at the
disc
intro,
scratches,
you hear the disc scratches, and especially like all the different types of, like, let's say, mini samples that are incorporated into the intro. So I also like that, because it kind of added this extra element of vintage to the song. But I agree with you. You know, the way that A$AP Rocky was able to come in here full of energy and kind of steal the show on this, because I got to agree with you. Like, I didn't expect this.
Yeah.
And when we were in the live stream tonight, we were talking to everyone, and people were like, you know, this is either going to be a hit or miss, or, oh, I'm not feeling too good about this. And then once you got Rocky's verse, you're like, wow, okay, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is fantastic. So on that note, I think the features were actually amazing. Like, even though there's 2 of them, they add so much just to this, you know, 9-track, you know, let's say album.
It made for the best song on the album.
It really did. And when you're going to go back to this project, this is going to be one of the biggest standouts for you, and you're going to really look at, you know, what happened on Wave Gods. But let's move on to the production, another vital point of any Nas and Hit-Boy project, because this is where Hit-Boy comes in. So now looking at King's Disease 2 and looking at this, I feel as if Hit-Boy is becoming a better producer with every single Nas project that he touches, and that's my opinion because this sounded very coherent, it sounded very fresh, but it wasn't necessarily anything different than you would have gotten from Hit-Boy, and maybe predictable at times. So overall, how did you like the soundscape of this new project?
I mean, yeah, I think you kind of, you said it right. I think that at this point, you kind of know what to expect from Hit-Boy's production. You get this 90s vintage feel with some boom bap drums. You get some old vocal samples as well, some soft strings. But I think that one major noticeable difference from King's Disease 2, I would say, to Magic is the fact that you're getting way more down-tempo beats where the pacing is slower. You don't have, let's say, those harder hitting trap drums that you would have gotten on songs like, for example, YKTV or 40 Side off of King's Disease 2. You don't have, let's say, those more aggressive sounding beats. It kind of feels slower, which kind of complements Nas's more meditative rhyme structures. So that was a noticeable difference, but it did kind of create some more pacing issues for me throughout the project. Apart from that, I mean, by the way, that's very visible on a song like Woo for the Children, where you have that very slow-paced beat.
Even Hollywood Gangsta,
yeah,
for more or less. And what I was going to say, though, is that I kind of got that faster-paced beats on songs like, let's say, Speechless, where that's when Nas had to introduce a new flow to be able to keep things refreshing, because I feel as if the drum patterns were maybe a bit quicker, but the loops that he was presenting and the way that he was, like, let's say, chopping up his beats were a bit slower and then had that kind of, you know, downshift tempo. But another big standout for me on the production side of things is on the outro Dedicated.
Yes.
Like, that was one of the craziest fucking beat switches that I've heard from Hit-Boy ever, and it was super surprising because we were going into the song and we're like, fuck, he has 3 verses. This is going to be a lengthy song. Is there going to be more pacing issues? Maybe that we had seen on Hollywood Gangsta and Woo for the Children.
Yeah.
But that one beat switch and the whole tempo switch on that song really saved the end of the track list, and it was actually the perfect way to be able to end off this album. So overall, listen, I think the production was great. I think that there's nothing wrong with it. You're going to get standard Hit-Boy production, and when you're looking back at this, I mean, yes, maybe there are some pacing issues, but still quality nonetheless.
And I think that another standout beat for me was actually 4016 Building, where you had this 2000s feeling triumphant production. Love that one as well. But let me ask you this before we move on to the replay value. You were saying earlier how you feel like Hit-Boy's production has continuously improved, but do you think this is a better produced project than King's Disease 2? Because I don't personally.
No, I don't think it's. I don't think in that sense. I just feel as if they're getting towards a nicer and nicer sound. Like that's maybe the way
they're
I
in
can put
sync
it.
more and more.
Well, the chemistry is definitely building up, but I think where King's Disease 2 went right was that it's a full, like it's a lengthier project. It was more grand. It definitely had a bigger feel than this. So yes, I do think that the production on the second installment of King's Disease was better, but I could see the way that they're going to start shaping up their sound to be able to go into the third installment, because if you guys didn't pick up already, the third installment has been confirmed for King's Disease. But let's get on to the replay value. Major part of every single project here at NFR. How do you think you're going to sit with this album, especially now that you have King's Disease 2 and you're probably going to get the third installment in the new year now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that overall, I'll have to give it a few more listens to really know how I'm going to digest the album. But as I'm feeling right now, I think that, look, I got 2 projects from Nas this year, so I can kind of choose what type of modern Nas I want to get into, and King's Disease 2 to me is a better project. I see myself revisiting that one more than this one because, once again, I feel like this project is similar to the original King's Disease in the sense that it feels more meditative, it feels more nonchalant by Nas, and it's not a bad thing, but I just didn't get the same energy, let's say, or the same concepts for songs like I got on a song like Nobody from King's Disease 2, where, you know, he's actually talking about his aspirations in life and giving me some refreshing content. So overall, there's not too many tracks that I would revisit, but if I'm going through the track list right now, I'll tell you which ones I would be going back to. So that includes Speechless,
I'm on that.
Ugly, 4016 Building, Wave Gods, and Dedicated.
I'm on that exact same thing. Even maybe The Truth. I might add The Truth in there as
well.
well.
That was pretty cool.
That was nice. I feel as if the only 2 that I'm really not feeling right now are Hollywood Gangsta and Woo for the Children. I think those are the only 2 I'm not feeling. But regardless, they're not even bad tracks. It's just like, in
mediocre
comparison, it's just when I'm going to be going back to this track list, I feel as if those are the songs that I'm going to be concentrating on. And I like what you said about now having the choice to decide where do you want to go with a modern Nas sound. Do you want to go for King's Disease 2 or this? And I'll always go back to King's Disease 2. But for the most part, I think that this was a really solid project. I mean, when looking at it, and especially the replay value, you're going to have to go back. You know, you're going to have Nas writing in here, so it's impossible to get everything off of even the first fucking 10 listens, you know? Like, you're going to really need to go into this and, you know, dive into Genius and understand everything that's going into it. So I think when you're looking at it, the replay value is actually good. You know, it's not that big of a grand project. It's kind of the teaser and let's say the tester to see what's going to be happening with the third installment. But let me ask you this now, you know, looking at this from an overview, how do you feel about this being maybe this intro and the step into the third installment for King's Disease?
It's cool. I just feel like Nas is stretching right now. It feels like it's just some lyrical exercise for him to, you know, try out different production styles, test out, you know, collaborations with different artists, because we've seen on previous projects that he does like to be working with these new gen artists. He has songs with Don Toliver, Big Sean, A Boogie with the Hoodie, but now he's finding more of a stride with, you know, artists that are maybe established within this next generation, where you have a feature from A$AP Rocky where the chemistry is really on a much better, you know, level than it was with his previous collaborators. So I think that he's just kind of testing the waters, seeing what types of sounds he wants to bring into KD3. So yeah, like you said, replay value is good, but speaking on the overall rating of this project, how are you feeling right now?
Okay, so I'm going to kind of bring you to my breakdown. I feel as if when you're looking at Nas, you're definitely not going to get anything short of great. He's definitely going to come back and impress you, especially at the ripe age of 48 years old. The content matter is not necessarily going to innovate, but it's going to provide a lot of value, because Nas is going to still be providing you knowledge on the streets and also how to move in your personal life and spiritually, and how to assess certain difficult situations in a proper manner. Now, when I'm looking at the features, A$AP Rocky added a ton of value to this track list, so that was a big plus for me. Looking at Hit-Boy's production, it wasn't necessarily anything innovative, and it's kind of predictable at this point, but it was still super clean, almost flawless, but maybe there was still some pacing issues
almost
within
flawless, wow.
No, well, flawless in the way that he did it, let's say.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
It wasn't like, it's not the, you know, the Chronic 2001, you know, but
yeah.
it's more like the way that he executed it.
You.
It was really well done. But now going on to, let's say, the pacing issues within maybe the production, Hollywood Gangsta, Woo for the Children, I feel as if those are maybe the only two shaky songs within the overall track list. But yeah, I'm gonna have fun with this project. It's the holidays, so I'm gonna be able to bump it, but it's just getting me more hyped for KD3. But how do you feel about this overall?
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a casual Nas listen for me. I think that I might revisit it if I just want to see what he might be going into with the future, because it feels like a warm-up project. It feels like he's not showing us his full set of cards yet. I feel like he's really testing out those waters. And like you said, in terms of the performance, Nas is killing it overall. He is, you know, in a later stage in his life, but he's still rapping at a top-notch level. Even though he might be more meditative, he still did experiment with flow, so I appreciated that. Content-wise, nothing new, but at this point, he's given us an onslaught of amazing records with so many groundbreaking concepts, so I'm not expecting anything new, so I was happy with what I did get. Apart from that, A$AP Rocky brought in so much life to this track list, and Wave Gods is my favorite song, and he has one of the best performances on the entire album. Production was sweet. I enjoyed it a lot. Like you said, predictable, but still, it was well catered to Nas's sound and his abilities, so that was appreciated, and I think that they are making for one of the best duos in terms of a rapper and producer combination. Apart from that, I mean, replay value, it's going to stick with me. I'll have to give it a few more listens to really get, I would say, to wrap my full head around it and see how I'll be messing with it in the new year. But overall, bro, I mean, it was a good listen. I think that it might be on the more forgettable side of Nas's catalog for me personally, but I'll still be bumping it in anticipation for King's Disease 3.
Absolutely. So listen, guys, the official rating for today is great. That's what we ended up equaling out to. It was a great listen. I think when you're going to go into this, you're going to find a lot of different qualities. And let us know how you felt about this project in the comments section. I want to know how you guys are feeling about this. And let me know if you're hyped for Nas's new project. And guys, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, it was a blast doing this live reaction with you guys. You know, it was awesome going into the stream on Patreon and, you know, seeing how you guys were feeling in the moment. And then, you know, it's always nice coming back to the comment section in the actual review to see the final verdict. So if you guys want access to the Patreon, the link is in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks for watching the full video, and if you're new to NFR, be sure to hit that subscribe button as we'll be keeping you guys updated with the latest album releases in terms of update videos, album reviews, and our own original series on the weekly. And we also have our Patreon plan available in the description below, where you can access weekly bonus content and also access to our Discord. So be sure to check out all of that, and we'll catch you in the next one.